I'm delighted to welcome to the programme this afternoon our very own Roy Walker. Hi,
Gerry, I'm delighted to be here.
It's
great to see you.
I haven't seen you for, well, the last time I think was we did the Mary Peters tribute in the Opera House. Do you remember?
That's right.
That was
right.
the last
yes,
time I saw.
Yeah.
How's the form?
They're great and great form. So I am. I'm busy, working away, travelling a lot. I'm enjoying life.
And you're looking really
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you.
You're back home tonight because you're playing Cookstown tonight. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But do you get a chance to come home much nowadays?
Not so much now, Gerry, because my mum died like a few years ago, and I've only got one or two cousins and left, and they're not mobile. So unless I was working, well, it's always nice to come home. But unless I was working, I wouldn't have the time.
How long have you been in Lytham now? How long have you been living there?
Since 77.
Wowee.
Isn't that a lifetime? Yeah.
So is Northern Ireland still home, or has that gone now, do you reckon?
Well, Belfast is always Belfast to me, you know what I mean? And the friends I met, the friends that you and I both know, it's always a delight to see them and what have you. And it's always a really good thing to come home and do your comedy for, the Ulster audiences. So I really do look forward to that.
Really good.
And if I'm cruising on the Queen Mary or the Queen Victoria or something like that, it's lovely when somebody from Northern Ireland comes up to you and says, "What about you?" That's great.
Everything started here for you, of course. Now, there was the Talk of the Town. You were the compere of the Talk of the Town. Everybody introduces you to that. I was never in the Talk of the Town.
No, you're too young.
What was it, Roy? Was it a night?
Right. Well, Rosemary that brought me here today, I passed it. We come over the flyover from Bangor, past the airport, and it was that garage on the right.
That's where it was.
That's where it was.
And what was it?
It was a little bar called the Jack and Norrie, which was owned by two guys called Jack and Norrie Sharp.
Right.
And the Trocadero with Danny Rice opened, and I opened it for him, and in the market. And you couldn't get in. It was on 3 floors, so we had circuit TV to the rest of the customers. It was too small. Then all of a sudden, the 60s, everybody went mad. Everybody wanted entertainment.
Yeah.
Norris come over, Paddy Leonard was building it, and he was going to call it the Blue Room because it was at the bottom of the Newton Arch Road, and I got him to call it the Talk of the Town.
Really?
I said, so there'll be no trouble.
And what was it? Comedy? What were you doing?
A 400 seat. I was a compere.
You were the compere.
Yeah.
Would that involve comedy and singing? Because you started out singing, really.
Well, I started as a dance band singer and what have you. But in the Talk of the Town, I learned so much from the opportunity that Norrie Sharp sort of gave me. We stole game shows from the TV. This, What's My Line, Open the Box, Double Your Money.
You did all this?
Yeah, we did all them, So everybody does in every pub, Instead of pub quizzes in those days, that's what we did. So I got to talk to people on stage, and it's very, very difficult to do that. It's easy to say, and the next number is, it was recorded by, and then sing the song, and then that's your talent. But actually, if you can communicate with people and get them up and get a wee bit of a laugh with them.
Well, how did the laugh start? How did that start for you?
Well, going to places that I was very fortunate, you see, in the Talk of the Town and in the Trocadero, because I had top musicians. So when I would go out into the country, I remember once going to Dundrum, where Paddy lives.
Paddy Kilty,
now, I told Paddy Kilty, he nearly died laughing. I'm not kidding you. We did Fun on the Foyle a couple of months ago before Christmas.
Yes.
A one-armed trumpet player. That's all the backing there was. So, we had comedians every week coming into the Talk of the Town. So I just took all the jokes from them, you know what I mean? I'd heard them for 7 nights running. So I started to do and learn that way. Well, you never learn comedy unless you're doing badly or you're under the cosh.
Uh-huh.
So
were you working in the shipyard at the same time?
No.
You'd given the shipyard up at this stage?
Yeah. No, I had my own shop then. I was 27. I was married. I had 3 children. I had my own shop, and I had a job during the day up in Ardoyne. I worked for Mr. Hastings.
Which Hastings?
The man that owns all the hotels.
Oh, Billy Hastings?
Yeah.
Oh, what did you do for him?
Well, I was learning to be a butcher. Frank Sullivan, who was a security for Danny Rice, gave me a job. And at first it was just driving a van, because Hastings had the food that would go into the airport and the Starmount Hotel.
Okay.
So he had his own butcher shop and distributed it like that. So I just took it was over in a couple of hours every day.
But basically, you were making your money at nights in the
Yeah,
clubs,
but I
right?
used his van, Mr. Hastings' van, for my fruit shop.
Did you tell him?
Yeah, he found out later on. You didn't much get past Mr. Hastings.
Why did you leave Northern Ireland? Because you came at a time in the 60s, the Troubles were just round the corner, things were closing down right, left and centre.
Yeah, well, but lots of people say to me, "Why did you leave?" It was obvious why we left. I was a Protestant and Jean was a Catholic. I couldn't go to her house, and she couldn't come to mine. That's the way it was. The streets, curfew in the streets, and of course I couldn't work because the curfew. There was no, you couldn't work after 7 o'clock. So we were quite naive. I fell in love. I had a wonderful wife and 3 children and what have you, and a great career going, and suddenly, nothing. But
was it your decision to go, or were you forced out?
well, in a way, it sort of came to when people are starting to get hurt and badly hurt all around you, you sort of know you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, So, but I made so many friends.
How did that make you feel at the time, Roy?
To tell you the truth, I never really thought about it. I never thought of the victim or anything like that there, because I was in love with show business. I was in love with family. I had a great family, you know what I mean? Now, that might sound a wee bit over the top to you, but nobody else I knew had a great family, but I wanted one. I was in 4 foster homes and a children's home before I was 7 years of age, so I wanted to have a family. Jean wanted to have a family. In those days, it's a long time ago, but in those days, to have a family, a wife, a job, and maybe a car, you'd made it.
But that was almost taken away from you because of what was happening.
It was,
circumstances,
but I was big enough and strong enough to leave, dust myself down, get over to England, and you know what? The people that I met that came into the Talk of the Town and the Chocolate Era, they more or less adopted me. They said, "You should have left years ago."
Yeah.
But I was happy in Belfast.
Well, you're a big fish in a small pond here.
Exactly.
When you went to England, you were a very small fish.
I had to start.
You had to start from
Yeah,
scratch.
right at the bottom.
So what was the break? Was the break New Faces at that stage?
No, it was funny because when I got there, like the Talk of the Town was the biggest thing in
Here.
probably the whole of Ireland.
Yes.
They didn't have anything like that in Dublin or anything even, so cabaret was starting. And when I got to England, it was like old hat, because in England they had, Tony Bennett, the first club that I was on with Tony Bennett.
Wow.
He was on a bit of a downer at the time, you know what I mean? And you would get over there and you would see the compeers, and they were not only sharp dressers, which I always had my clothes tailor-made, in McCausland's and Ann Street. And when I arrived in England, they always said, he's in show business, but you should see his suit. Peter McCausland made all our clothes, you know what I mean? It was brilliant clothes that he made. So I found out that they were just as good a singer, if not better than me. And of course I had the experience of introducing people, which very few people can do. That's your game.
Did you go to England as a singer?
As a sort of one, a comedy vocal.
Right.
Comedy vocal was the billing. And when I got there, they went, Comedy's king. You've got to be a comedian. You know what I mean? And then lots of people said to me, "Do you know you tell the jokes better than some of the comedians?" So I thought, do I? Of course, like Frank Carson was a friend, but you couldn't copy Frank Carson.
No.
You know what I mean?
So where did your style come from? This very laid back...
Fear.
Good answer. But it worked, I tell you.
Well, it was. I can remember the night. We. By the way, I was 26, Gerry. I owned my own house, I owned my own business, and I had a great career going with the Talk of the Town and what have you. I had a brand new car, all that sort of stuff, and 3 lovely children. And we finished up in a council house in Peterlee, south of Sunderland, working 12 shows a week.
Wow. Right?
But I was learning. I was learning all the time and what have you. And comedy was king. The Comedians was going to come out in 72. I'd gone over in 69 to try out. That's when I worked with Tony Bennett.
Okay.
And I went back again in 71, and that was for good. And I gave Jean £100 Did you ever hear of an agent called Jack Wallace?
I have indeed.
Well, Jack was very good to me. Him and Mary, God rest them, they're lovely people. And he gave me 100 quid, you know, and he said, "Don't forget to give me it back when you're rich and famous, Roy."
Wow.
You know, so I gave Jean the 100 quid.
And that kept you going in those
That
early
kept
days.
her going for, I said, it'll do for a month until I get something. But when I got over there, I went into professional digs, and there was comedians in there and singers and what have you. And a lot of singers were becoming comedians, you know. So we talked and talked all through the night and what have you. Then they came to see me work. And once they see me work, I went to see them work. Yeah. And then they took me north. They took me up to the Badlands, as they called it, into the northeast of England, where if they like you, they let you live.
Yes.
So, and they got me work, and they got me somewhere to stay, and I got a council house, and somebody was looking after me from up there, you know what I mean? So about 6 weeks later, I went to an auction and I bought some furniture. You know, I'm a sort of guy, I won't be down for long, you know. And Jane arrived with the children. And, you know, the next door neighbours, he worked in, I think he worked down the pit, and went into his garage and he gave me a dining room set he was ready to throw out. We just threw a tablecloth over it, and we were home. We had the children back again.
You see, you look at you now, and you look at all your success, and you forget those days.
Yeah.
Were they happy days, or were you constantly
They were wonderful
struggling?
days. Change, you know, a new challenge. You know, it was wonderful learning. You know, hearing people laugh. You know, changing my whole career around. You know, even to this day now, you know, I sing an occasional song, and they say, the audience come up to you and say, "Could you not sing another one for us, please?" You know, because the voice is still good, but I love the comedy.
Actually,
you know?
but you're so good at it.
So you're asking me about how did it start. So I wasn't doing very well, but just well enough. But I had a voice to get me out. So if things were really bad, I'd sing a couple of songs and the audience would forgive you.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So anyway, there was one Friday night's lads' night out, the bars are packed. These people work very hard, you know, down pits and what have you. So they've got a right to demand good entertainment. But for singing, the bands were so bad that everybody seemed to sing the same songs. They were the only ones the band knew. So they were sick of listening to the same song. So anyway, the guy says to me, "We've got 3 singers on. We want you to do some comedy, okay?" He said, "Don't worry if you don't do well." He said, "You'll get half your money." I went, "Okay." So I went out. And, you know, I was trembling. And so I spoke very, very softly, you know. And it was a Belfast joke from all those years ago when my mother lived in a cold water house, you know. And it applied to them because they were in cold water houses. They didn't have immersion heaters or anything like that there. They still had the bucket to heat and put in the tin bath, the coal miners. Yeah. You know, and the wife would scrub their back and whatnot. Yeah. So I went, "My mother's doing well. She had a new bath put in." And the whole time I'm thinking, and while I'm speaking, I'm thinking, why did I start this? This is the worst joke in the whole world. And somebody at the bar went, "Shh, shh, what does he say?" So I started again. I said, "My mother's doing well. She had a new bath put in." And the corporation fella said, "There you are, Mrs. Walker. New bath. All you need's a plug." She said, "Is it electric?" And they laughed, Gerry. They laughed.
But that, as you say, that was not out of fear. And why have I started this
fear.
joke? So the patter was quiet. It was
instead of coming on and going, "Hey everybody, yes. Look, hello, everybody, it's great to be here. Sunderland, anybody from Northern Ireland?" Everybody does that, don't they?
Oh, that is brilliant.